All right. So everything from here onward is being recorded. Okay.
Okay.
So if you're going to pick your nose, it's going to be recorded. Well, good evening, everyone. The date is November 3rd, 2020. There doesn't really seem to be anything interesting happening in the world right now. Right. Yeah, sure. And if you believe that, I've got a piece of a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. But actually, there is something very, very cool that's about to happen. I am joined by a longtime friend of mine and someone who is actually more like family to me than just a friend, and also a friend of the channel, the one and only Fiona. Take a bow, dear. It's good to have you back. It's been roughly a year, I think, since we did the first couple of Fiona File episodes.
Yeah, but in 2020, it feels like it could have been 5 years.
That's very true. Yep. Time almost has no meaning whatsoever anymore, it feels like. So just the other day, I was actually thinking that it was the third. And well, it was just yesterday, in fact. I was thinking that it was the third when it was actually the second. And that's where it's like, you know, with falling back, the time change, or in the spring, when we spring ahead, add all that to 2020. And what winds up happening is that time just has no meaning. And that's all there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but there was at the very least like, okay, so this is being recorded on the night of the so-called election, but we're not going to discuss that. But it's been just a few days since we had Halloween, and I know that that is my absolute favorite holiday out of all of them, even more so than Christmas. Fiona, I think the same is true for you, right?
Yes.
And what Fiona and I decided to do was start by discussing some of our Halloween costumes that we've worn over the last few years. So, in no particular order, Fiona also provided me with a few photos to share with you guys. So we're going to start with this year's Halloween costume, if that works for you.
Yes.
Okay, so this lovely photo here. So this was your Halloween costume from this year. Now, to the average person just looking at it, this does not seem so much like a Halloween picture, right?
Yes.
But I think if I just go left one, now it becomes a little bit more apparent. Fiona, do you want to tell us about this costume?
Well, this costume is from the movie/board game called Clue, which I think most people have either heard of or played or whatever. I was Miss Scarlet from Clue.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was one other picture where I was standing with a few different weapons and a bag that said Clue. I don't know if I sent that one to you.
I didn't get that one, no.
Okay. But basically, I have like a rope there and like a little piece of pipe because those are some of the classic weapons in the game of Clue. I'm sure most people are pretty familiar with the game, but basically, what the point of the game is that you have to figure out who killed somebody and in what room of the house and with what weapon. And it was originally a board game, but I think it's what kind of started the whole like murder mystery party genre where, and it also was a movie, which is a hilarious movie. I definitely recommend it. Actually, Tim Curry is in it, Stefan.
Yes, I love that movie so
It's,
much. There
it's
are
such a
no
favorite.
words.
And my favorite character in all is Miss Scarlet because I'm always have been drawn to like, the femme fatale, strong female characters. So I thought, well, Miss Scarlet, like if I'm going to do Clue, like 110%, that's who I have to be.
I like it. I like it a lot. Okay. So this year, I also dressed up, obviously, because I love Halloween so much. A couple of years ago at the Calgary Expo, I dropped rather a sizable chunk of change to buy some like kind of fancier clothing from one of the vendors. Um, some of it, viewers that have been watching, like say your childhood drama, the blue vest that I wore on a couple of the episodes, even the vest that I was wearing on the first two episodes of Fiona Files, those were some of the kinds of things that I bought. But
Oh, yeah, I remember that vest.
yep, well, I bought a lot. And so this was my costume from this year. In St. Albert, candy was being handed out on people's driveways.
Right.
So, I was outside handing out candy and everything. And because it was a little bit windy, I thought I better layer up. So, what I have going on here, I have a t shirt on, and then I have a nice black sort of linen style of shirt. The blue vest from your childhood dramas, episodes 1, 2, and 3, I believe. That little sort of floral uh, pattern that you see right there, that
Yeah.
is actually a tailcoat.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I have a nice cloak over top. Um, this is very, very warm. Like I did not for once feel like I was outside. And of course, because of COVID and everything else and passing out candy, wore a mask, but it was themed. So not any particular character, but I liked it.
I
I
like
liked it. Yep.
that mask is just funny because like can you imagine if somebody's face was actually like that?
Oh my god.
I'm sorry, I just am picturing your face like that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, that would be interesting. So, oh my goodness. Then there was last year. So let's take a look at your costume from last year. Ta-da!
Yeah, last year I was Cleopatra.
This is quite a dramatic look for you. Like, I love it. It's very, very
Well,
cool.
yeah. Well, first of all, obviously that's a wig. um,
What?
the makeup was definitely not the easiest thing in the world. I'm not really that. I wish I was more skilled with eyeliner, but I'm not. So that was quite a bit of a challenge. But it was super fun because I've always loved the Egyptian stuff. Egyptian stuff is one of my favorite culture, and yeah, obviously Cleopatra is one of my somebody that I really look up to. So in terms of like figures throughout history and stuff. So it
Mhm.
was super fun. And I always love wearing wigs. It's so much fun to get to have the black hair for a day or whatever.
As a balding person, I feel personally attacked. Yeah. But no, I really like this costume. I'm curious about some of the pieces with it. Like, were they ones that you found, or was it a costume that you made, or how did that come together?
The thing around my neck was attached to the dress.
Mm-hmm.
The earrings, what earrings was I wearing? Oh, those earrings I got at like Spirit of Halloween store.
Okay.
The headband was I believe that came with the wig, and like the things on my arms that was attached to the blue scarf, which came with the costume. So most
Oh,
of
okay.
it came with the costume. But in terms of made costumes, technically this year my costume was fully homemade because it was a red dress that I bought, and all of my like weapons I got them at Canadian Tire. So
I can just picture now you walk in like, yeah, I need a lead pipe. I need some rope, please. And they're like, what are you doing? It's Halloween. Oh, yeah, that'd be fun. Let's see. I'm gonna pull up my picture or my costume from last year now. I'm a big fan of Harry Potter. I mean, not as big as Star Trek, so don't ask me too much about like trivia and so on and so forth. But I decided to make good use of, again, there's that cloak, fancy shirt. I've even got like the little sort of dicky kind of thing. And then another vest and uh, a wand, a magic wand. Oh no, a magic wand. I decided to go as one of Voldemort's Death Eaters.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I've got going on. You can't really see it on the wand, but the head of the wand, like the handle of the wand, is actually a snake.
Okay.
So, but I also invested in this mask right here. So, viewers of the channel, you might recognize this mask. Let's see if I can zoom in. Viewers of the channel might recognize this mask from the Halloween special from last year. This mask I wound up repurposing to be my Satan mask. So yeah, lots of fun. It also made an appearance actually in this year's Halloween special. Now that I think about it, but very very difficult to breathe in. There are some air holes, but damn, it gets hot inside of that mask. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah,
So
that's so cool. I really I didn't know that. I didn't know you were into Harry Potter.
see, the more you know, right? The
Right.
more you know.
See, this is
All right.
exciting. I don't know. The reaction that I'm giving is my actual reaction because I don't know what's coming on the screen for you or for me.
Okay, well, are you ready for the next one then?
Yes. Buffy.
Yes. Now I lightened up the picture a little bit. The one you sent me, like this picture was a little bit dark, so I kind of made a little bit of adjustments to it to make it a little bit brighter. But yeah, you are or were still are a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan.
I wouldn't say as much as I used to be. That used to be like my thing or whatever, right? I
Mm-hmm.
still like I still really like it. Um I was actually more of a fan of the show Angel as I felt it was a little bit more mature as
Mm-hmm.
Buffy was very um she's in high school, she's growing up, right? I
Yep.
still It's an amazing show. It's probably one of the best shows I've ever seen, and I do intend to watch it many more times, but it's not as much on my that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, Angel too. Angel was the show I liked more because in Angel everybody was already an adult, so they weren't going through those like growing up problems that Buffy was going through.
Yeah.
um but yeah, like, and that's totally that's one of my favorite genres, right? It's like the vampires, mystery,
Mm-hmm.
supernatural, all that kind of stuff. So I love that. So, but I would say in terms of like story writing and all that, like absolutely, it still is one of the best shows I've ever seen. Um, but yeah, I don't really have as much. And in terms of that costume, that wasn't even like a costume in itself. I did have a Slayer shirt, and then I just had paired it with the black pants and a cross necklace, and I just straightened my hair. So that one wasn't like necessarily like a costume I went out and bought. It was another one that I kind of like put together on my own.
I'm going to say this, like, okay, viewers, looking at this picture of Fiona, and I'll have another one of Buffy herself side by side. Like you are really kind of like a great spitting image of the character here. Like my goodness, when was this picture taken? Do you know? Do you remember?
Um, I'd say it's well, that's in our new house, so it wasn't like forever ago. But I'd say within mm, probably about 5 years ago, maybe ish,
Okay,
give or take five ish.
okay. I'm going to show you my costume from 5 years ago. Then, viewers, brace yourselves.
And me too.
This is before the epic COVID beard or the apostate goatee ever appeared on me. Okay. Okay. Boom. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
So yeah, Link from The Legend of Zelda. I mean, very recognizable character if you're a video gamer. But yeah, this was me 5 years ago. This was at work. We were all dressed up and everything, and yeah, this was my costume. That is in fact a metal shield with like a grip to hold on and everything. In fact, it's hanging up in my office here. That is a full metal sword.
They allowed you to bring that to work?
Yeah. Well, okay. In all fairness, um, the sword isn't sharpened. Like only the tip is sharp because, of course, it's like tapered, right? But even then, like as I was posing for this picture, my boss, he's like, "Now, Stefan, you be careful with that sword, right?" I'm like, yeah, don't worry. Like, trust me, I'm not going to be swinging it around and everything else. Like, but yeah. So, and it might be a little bit tricky to see, maybe not. There is a scabbard that
Okay.
is strapped to my back that the sword was able to go into. So, but I'll say this: it is awkward to pull a sword out of your back at full length and be like, get it out. Ah! I don't know how that is supposed to actually work, much less putting it back in.
And stab yourself in the neck.
Pretty much. Pretty much. And my version of Link apparently wears glasses because, this is Link in his later years, I guess. But there you go.
I
So
like it.
I've always been a big fan of The Legend of Zelda. I played the original one in secret, hiding out in my bedroom because that game genre would have been like, just ooh, so bad it's demonized because there's magic in it. So
Okay.
yeah, but I've always been a big fan, and I really want to get a tattoo of the Master Sword on probably either my arm or my leg. I'm not 100% certain, but
That's cool.
yeah, that'll come. So, but yeah, that was me 5 years ago. um, I'm actually going to share another. Okay, this is another picture. Um, this is from let's see, this was 3 years ago. I was working on a project with the Alberta government's justice department, working on a program for the provincial morgue. And
Oh
so
yeah,
I
I remember
decided
that.
to make my Halloween costume topical.
What did you do to your eyes?
So that is a prosthetic purchased from Spirit of Halloween, although maybe it could have been attached a little bit better and blended a little bit better. But yeah, it's something that just gets glued on with some spirit gum, and it makes it just look like my eyes were gouged out. You know how much fun it was walking into the office? They're like, "Good morning, everybody," and they're like, "Whoa!" Yeah, that was fun. Had a rubber brain and a rubber heart and Freddy Krueger's glove. I was intimidating to look at. Like, yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
was wondering. I was like, is that Wolverine or the Freddy Krueger?
yeah. Freddy Krueger. That was just a fun thing to add. There was one little girl that came to the door for trick or treating, and I whipped open the door in this outfit. And I'm like, "Happy Halloween!" And a bunch of the kids are like, "Ah!" This one cute little girl, about 3 years old, she's sitting there or standing at the front of the group, and she looks up at me and she goes, "What happened to your eyes?" I was like, "Aw," and I said, "Well, little girl, you know how your
You didn't
parents are
actually say
always."
well, little girl, did you?
Yes, because I was in character, right?
Okay, because I'm like, because that does sound kind of creepy. But if you're in character, then I guess that's
Exactly. And I said to her, "Well, little girl, you know how your parents are always telling you never to play with scissors and sharp objects?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "All you kids, your parents tell you that?" "Yeah." "Well, look at what happened to me because I didn't listen." Oh. So
probably still have
kids, when
PTSD.
your parents tell you not to play with sharp objects, this is what could happen. So listen to your parents, okay? And they're like, "Okay." And the parents at the end of the sidewalk, they're like, "Thank you very much." Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I've got the next picture that I'm going to share. Are you ready? Boom.
Ah, it's my sweatshirt.
Yes. So so to the average viewer, this may not look like too much of a costume, right? It's like, "Oh, it's a sweater." But but so okay, so just switching back and forth, all right? So for anybody that doesn't recognize who this is, Fiona, tell us who this is.
Freddie Mercury from Queen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah, it's probably hard to tell that picture if you don't really know because half his face is covered by that hat.
yeah, but I just love that you have that sweater. That is
Yeah,
so
I
cool.
have I have two. I have a red. I think I sent both to
You
you.
did, yep. Bingo. There we go. Now I don't have a picture of Freddie Mercury in this shirt, but when did he wear this shirt? I feel like it looks so familiar.
um, I think it was just a shirt that he had. It wasn't really like
Okay.
if you Google Freddie Mercury yellow sweatshirt, it'll be like the first thing that pops up.
Okay. I think that's the shirt, right?
Uh
Yeah. So, yeah. There we go.
huh.
I like it. Like it's a good way to express your fandom, which like I'm all for. I mean, hell, I mean right now I'm wearing a Weird Al Yankovic t-shirt, so, you know. Now, speaking of expressing fandom, um this was a Halloween costume from 2016. Yeah, 2016. And yeah, I combined my fandom with the spirit of Halloween. Boom. So
Yours are always so like
gruesome. um so like people that watch the original series of Star Trek, you know that if you wear a red shirt and you beam down to a planet, unless your name is Scotty, there's a good chance you're not coming back home. So what I decided to do was be one of those red shirts that had died and had come back really, really angry about it. So yeah. You can't see it, but this is in fact like it's a red T-shirt, but it has like the little Starfleet logo on it. But then also I added like a bunch of like burn marks to it to make it look like I had been in battle. And yeah, what was really fun was this piece of nastiness right here. One coworker of mine, she could not stand to look at me or be within 6 feet of me on that day. She's like, "You just look too gross." I'm like, "Aw, shucks, thanks." Yeah, that was a lot of fun. that day. And yeah, anytime I took a picture, I always made sure to, really bug my eyes out. Rah! Oh, but yeah. Then there's this picture.
That's at the Rocky Horror Show.
Exactly. Now this is not
That's
Halloween
rehearsal, yes?
costumes. What's that?
That must have been from rehearsal or something because we're not dressed up.
It is from the actual show. Like we are dressed up. I'm I've got the suit jacket on and then the sweater that is my version of Brad Major's sweater vest there.
Oh, I think this year I was just the floor show Janet. That's why. Because
I
I
think
one
so.
year I did only half. I did like the sled Janet,
Yep.
and somebody else did the before stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the year because I'm like, why aren't I wearing the purple thing? But that must be the year that I was just the floor show onwards Janet.
I think so. To be honest, like this is actually one of my favorite pictures of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the only sadness that I have about it is of course because it was taken in low light with a selfie, like the selfie side of the cell phone, it looks like kind of grainy and everything. But I really do love this photo with you.
Yeah. Well,
As, as
that's how we met through Rocky
through
Horror.
Rocky. Yeah. That's how we met. I'm really, really glad actually that for a time you did play Janet in the cast because it was so much fun lifting you up lifting you up during Damn It Janet and swinging you around. And what some viewers might already know, but I'm going to share it with everybody, is when Fiona and I get together, uh just I think is it every hug or about 95% of all hugs are basically like lifting you right off the ground and swinging you around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just that's a big Stefan bear hug that I enjoy giving to you. And because of COVID, haven't been able to give you one in like 10 or 11 months now.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's been far too long. So you're just banking them up. That's what it is. Just banking them up. I think once like we finally do get to see each other face to face again, you're gonna get picked up and swung around like 720 degrees or something like that. So, you've been
When we see each
warned.
other wearing our socks.
Yes, exactly. So I'll have to make sure to do that on a carpeted floor because the house I live in now, the main floor is all hardwood, so that could be a little bit slippery. This is, I'm going to call it a costume because this is actually taken in a Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses in Prince Albert,
Oh,
Saskatchewan.
oh, so this
Back,
is interesting because I've never been in one of these places.
yeah, you don't want to go in one of them. Nah.
Yes, I've always wanted to do like an undercover thing in all these places.
Oh, well, this was me as a Jehovah's Witness. I believe this was taken in 2013, so not too long before I escaped. But yeah, this is actually a picture. I'll tell you right now, this is actually a picture that I really, really hate of myself because, one, I'm a Jehovah's Witness in it, but two, I can't stand wearing a suit, right? And ties, whoever invented the idea of wearing ties, I feel like this was a woman that was getting her vengeance on men for corsets or bras. That's what I feel is
uh,
happening right here because a tie
no,
is a torture device.
no, 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 Stefan, that's not true because back in those days, women used to pass out from wearing corsets. And to my knowledge, nobody has ever passed out from wearing a tie.
Oh, I've come pretty damn close, I can tell you that. The problem being, right? Because you have the tie like really snugged right up there, right?
Uh-huh.
There's no ventilation that's possible.
Maybe just loosen your tie a little bit then.
Yeah, but then you see like that looks sloppy and that's not allowed, right? So like there's no ventilation, there's no nothing. You basically wind up locking yourself in and stewing in your own juices. That's
This brings me back to uh, elementary school when girls were wearing ties so that they could look like Avril Lavigne.
Oh, that's like self-inflicted torture. That's what that is.
No, 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 no. They were like tied like around here,
Oh, like way down. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
like
Yep.
the Avril Lavigne look.
So that kind of brings us to an interesting aspect of our discussion because as you were telling me in the last little while, some things have changed for you when it comes to religion and such. So, the very first episode, we talked about how you attended the Mormon church for a time. In the second episode, we were talking about how you were attending the Catholic Church for a time, or no, not for a time, but you were actively attending the Catholic Church. But you've told me that things have changed. So, would you care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, basically, actually, pretty much since COVID started, I kind of went on a process of, I don't want to say self discovery, I want to say self rediscovery. Um, and I realized that I was not being true to myself. I was, I, it was kind of like I was almost putting myself in a little box, and I put that box way down, hidden somewhere, you know, and that was very new for me because I've never been somebody to follow crowds or to do what the popular people are doing, whatever. So I didn't even realize that I was doing it at the time. But then through this process of self rediscovery, I realized all of these things that I was either denying myself or saying, oh, like, like, no, that's not the way that you're supposed to be or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I realized that I couldn't do that anymore, I had to be true to myself. Then I felt like I was being very conflicted because I was like, okay, this is how I am. And then I was like, well, does this still align with the church? And to a point, I think it did. But as for where I am right now, I would say that my relationship with the Catholic Church would be, in Facebook terms, it's complicated.
It's complicated. So you mentioned the idea about like how you were and like how it relates to the church. So what do you mean exactly? Like, can you give an example?
Well, and to be fair, I don't think that I think what one of my biggest, and I don't want to say problem, but the main religious influences that I had in my life were either very religious family members or literally like a group of nuns at church. So you have like a really really extreme end of the spectrum, right? Whereas I don't think a lot of, probably most Catholics are like that, but that was the only example I had. So, you know, being constantly told by them, and like I said, I don't want anybody to that's watching this to feel like this is what I was getting from the church itself. It wasn't. It was more from the people within the church. It was not something that I was being, like, I know in your story you were being taught a lot of stuff, right? Like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. For me, it wasn't so much what I was being taught, it was the people that were influencing me in my like religious life or whatever, spiritual life, were putting like, this is what you should be doing, this is how you should be acting. And for like the very first time and only time in my life, I was so eager to please for some reason that I just started doing it. And I didn't even really realize how much I was changing myself until afterwards. And I was like, what happened? So then what did happen was when COVID started, church stopped. You couldn't go to church anymore, right? And then so I was still watching online, and I still do. I still do watch online every weekend. Um, but it wasn't sitting well with me. And I was feeling like, I was getting, and this is, had I been either raised in a Catholic family or like had more normal Catholic friends or whatever, I don't think I would have been at this like crossroads. But just because of how deeply ingrained these other people's influences were on me, that's where I was really feeling like it was two way separate things. Like, for example, when you look at the Halloween costumes that I've worn throughout the years, right? Cleopatra, Harley Quinn, Miss Scarlet, Buffy, they're all very strong, powerful, independent women. And that's always how I have been. Um, I've always been sassy, I've well, you know that, I think.
Mhm.
But then when I was hanging around these um super religious people, they're telling me that's not how God wants us to be meek. God wants us to be, humble and all these kinds of things. And of course, being humble is important. You shouldn't walk around being narcissistic, but being constantly told to, like, you have to be meek. You have to like tone this down, to be quiet and gentle and all these kinds of things. Um and I was doing a good job of fooling myself, because I thought at first it was a little bit hard, but then you do it for a while and you're like, you think, okay, well, whatever, I'm just changed. I'm now less than how I used to be. But then just coming to realization, um first last year, that I wasn't going to follow the path into the church like I thought I was going to. But then this spring, finding out that I was still, even though I was like, okay, no big deal, I'm not going into the church anymore, I was still wearing this mask that I didn't even realize I was wearing. And so then over the past and then as the months went on, I felt like as I was becoming more and more like myself, I felt like I was trying to pull away more and more from the church. So what I decided, and this was just recent, a few weeks ago, because I was really feeling like I was starting to be angry towards the church. And I was like, I don't want to leave angry, because really the church has not done anything to me. It's these people that have. So I
So
thought,
hold on just a moment there. That's kind of an interesting point that you brought up. Like it's not the Catholic Church that you felt was trying to mold you into being a certain way, like
mhm.
the organization, but it was rather like the other people that you were attending masses with, that you felt that
Yeah,
they were the ones trying to lord it over you and tell you how
yeah,
you ought to be.
yeah. And even when I wasn't seeing them anymore, seeing as that was pretty much my only religious influence, and so basically the only example I really had to go off of. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sure, because realistically, the Catholic Church is the biggest Christian church in the world, and not a whole lot of people are that straight laced and religious, right? Um, but seeing as how that was my only influence, it kind of that was all I had. That was all I kind of knew, right? So I didn't really get an opportunity to see a lot of like normal Catholic people. So I just was feeling like hold. So I thought, okay, I need to take some steps back and take this pressure off myself, because that was the biggest pressure that was coming from. It wasn't coming from, and that's what I have to say, 100%. The biggest pressure that was on me was from myself. It wasn't from church. It wasn't from a priest. It wasn't even from my family members or, my friends that were in the church. It was the biggest pressure that I was putting on myself. So, and then that pressure that I was putting on myself was making me resentful towards the church, and I was just feeling stifled, even though I there was no reason to be, because all I was doing was watching church on the computer, so that nobody had any opportunity to personally come and stifle me, right? So that's why I realized that this pressure was just on myself. So I said, okay, before I become too resentful, I need to take some steps away. So that's basically where I am now. Like I said, I do still watch mass on Sundays on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
because they've continued live streaming it because of COVID. But honestly, that's the totality of my religion. Like, I do still believe in God because to me, I've seen so many things in the way like life works and stuff. I just can't see it being totally like random, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And while it's not something that I really, really think about a whole lot anymore, if I really, really had to dig deep inside myself, I probably would still align with the Christian belief that, like we were created and then, Jesus died for us all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I would probably still believe that. However, it's not the focus of my life anymore. And like I said, I don't have anything bad to say necessarily about the Catholic Church. I mean, there are some things that I don't necessarily agree with in the teachings, but I think honestly, a large majority of Catholics don't necessarily agree with.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have like an issue with the church itself. Um, because nobody has ever really given me a reason to. It just was more that I was like, okay, like I have to be true to myself. And then I was realizing that I was putting so much pressure on myself from these other influences that I had that I said, okay, like I need to take some steps back. And then I realized I was feeling so much better because I wasn't feeling a massive amount of guilt anymore about how I was. Because, I mean, the fact of the matter is that if you believe that, God made you a certain way or whatever, if that's your belief, I mean, I've been this way, independent and sassy and whatever since I was little. It wasn't like I was a goody two shoes my whole life and then, I met some bad people and, everything changed. I always have been that kind of, personality, right? And the only time that that really changed was when I was around those people. So that's why I call it like a self rediscovery instead of a discovery.
Yeah. So let me ask you about there's one picture that you sent me that
Oh,
that I
I know what
haven't
it's
shown
gonna
yet, and that I
be.
was saving up. I was saving it for now. Um, so you mentioned the idea about how you were like you were being told like, yeah, like you're supposed to be meek. Um, uh, you had to sort of put away the sass, as it were.
Uh-huh.
So was this was this a Halloween costume picture, or was this something else?
Okay, so that number one, that is a real rosary around my neck.
Mm-hmm.
The nun veil. This picture was taken just before I started going to Catholic church. So I'd
Okay.
say this picture was like in Halloween-ish of 2017. And that was when I was still kind of thinking that the thing was kind of funny. So I bought like this um nun veil and I was like, I had a rosary around my neck and I wasn't really even going to church yet. So but see, like this is, you see like all these pictures of me. That's how I am, right? There's so many pictures of me like this. And this
Mm-hmm.
is funny, right? It's funny because then I actually was hanging around real nuns and I almost did go in that way, to be honest.
Yeah.
But when I think about it now, I think I would have gotten kicked out after about 45 minutes.
So, like, okay, you said that this was roughly around like 2017,
Yeah.
like Halloween of 2017.
Yeah, because I bought that at a Halloween store, but it wasn't my actual Halloween costume.
So it's been 3 years.
Uh-huh.
If you could go back in time and tell this version of yourself anything, what would you say to her?
Um, well, I mean, I don't know if I would say that I regret the whole thing because it was a good experience. But the biggest thing I would say is just like you're going to go on this adventure because that's really what it was.
Hmm.
And it's, it's not going to work out, but that's okay. And not to be so hard on yourself because, and of course I would tell her not to lose yourself as much because I'd be like, that's not like you. You've, you've lasted 24 years being your own person. Why are you going to start now, right, in 2017, or I guess it would be more 2018 when I started changing a lot? Why are you going to start then? But
Hmm.
you know I would say with that, if you would have showed me that picture in either 2018 um or early 2019, I'd be like, oh my god, like look at me, like what was I doing? But you know what, like who cares? It's funny and it's it shows who I really kind of am. And so I'm fine with that. That's why when I first sent you that picture, I was like, and then I was like, you know what, like who cares? Just put it in the video
Hmm.
because I don't want to hide anymore. And there's nothing that I really feel like I keep that secret from people. And then I really realize how, the whole nun experience, it was a good experience. I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't
Hmm.
because I just wouldn't. I don't really believe in thinking about, oh, I wish I didn't do that or whatever. But like I just see now, like I think more like what were you doing, like not in the sense of you're doing something wrong, but it's like who were you trying to be? And really honestly, the biggest revelation that I was changing myself like so much, it actually came when I was watching the new Adams Family movie, like the new cartoon one.
Okay.
I don't know, did you ever see that movie?
I have not. No.
So basically, what happens is that the Adams family live in this house, and then they go into like this town where everybody looks exactly the same, and they're all dressed in like pink, and everybody has like happy names and all this kind of stuff. And obviously, Adams family comes in to just to see them, and everybody's like, "Who are these like freaks or whatever?" Right? And Wednesday, she goes to school, and all these girls are like wearing pink, and they're all whatever, and she's like the Wednesday, right? And then
Hmm.
when I watched that movie, I was like, that used to be me. I used to be Wednesday. Now I'm one of these pink girls. Like, what happened, right? Because even the way I was dressing was differently. My favorite color, like always to wear, was black, with second being red. But I wasn't wearing that. I was wearing like white and pink and all these like soft girly colors and stuff, which look good on some people, but this just wasn't me. So then I realized that, and I was like, what are you doing? You're not even wearing black anymore. Like, you know, so that was
I
like kind of
actually remember you coming over for a visit. Now that I think about it, I remember you coming over for a visit, and you had on some pink, and I remember looking at you like, since when does she wear pink? So
yeah.
right,
I
like,
so
yep.
that was kind of like the first start, but then like over the next few months, and especially I don't know why, but since COVID really started, I kind of realized how more and more that it was like I was changing myself, I was toning myself down. I remember I used to have this thing in my car because another thing that I've always been like wildly like obsessed with forever, even when I was little, was I've always thought like witches and all that kind of stuff was like really, really cool. And
Hmm.
when I was little, there's this movie called Scooby Doo and the Witch's Ghost. And there's this band called the Hex Girls. They're like this like Wiccan like rock band or whatever. And I wanted to be Hex Girl so bad. And I was only like probably like I was just little, but I wanted to be like this. It was like this gothic Wiccan like rock band in the Scooby Doo movie, and I was like, I want to be a Hex Girl. And I did join a Wiccan group for a while when I
Hmm.
was like, I don't know, like 20 or 21 or something. I did join one for a while. So you can't say I haven't tried at all. Um, but, you know, so anyway, I've always really, really liked the witch stuff, and I always thought it was really cool. And I used to have this thing in my car that said, a witch should never be afraid in the forest or in the dark forest or something because she should be sure that the scariest thing in the forest was her, you know? And I had that in my car, and I was like, and I love that, right? Because I'm like, yeah, like I'm not gonna be scared of things. Like things should be scared of me. But and then I remember it was literally on my birthday, and I was driving home. I had one of my religious friends in the car, and she saw it, and she didn't say anything. So I thought, oh, like I wonder what's gonna happen. And then a few weeks later in church, she told me, she's like, well, like that's not good for you because
Mm-hmm.
that's not how God wants you to be. Like that witchy stuff is, like you're supposed to be meek and humble and all this kind of stuff. And then she's like, you should go through your room and find all that kind of stuff that would show that and get rid of it.
For any
Um,
of my ex Jehovah's Witness viewers, does that sound just a little bit familiar to you?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so like I said, I feel honestly, if I wouldn't have become so involved with such deeply religious people, I think if I just would have gone to Catholic church like most people I don't think would have said anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because so like it was just the people that I was with, and I don't want to say that like I'm like wanting to defend everything about the Catholic Church or whatever, but I'm really trying to make it clear that this was not the church that was doing this to me. It was a select group of people,
It
right?
wasn't the institution, it was the followers.
And not even the followers, a specific group of followers.
Yeah.
Almost kind of like it was almost kind of like, okay, like if you say high school, right? Let's say Catholic Church is high school, and you have all these different people, and most of them don't care, but of course, like there's one group, the popular girls or whatever you want to call it. Not that these people were popular, but you know what I'm saying, right? There's the
Yep.
one specific group of people that will be the one trying to do influencing and all that kind of stuff, whereas most people don't care, right? So that's
Yep.
kind of what it was like. If you say, okay, well, like Catholic, if my experience with Catholic Church was like high school, it wasn't the school itself, and it wasn't the majority of the population. It was this, because that's usually how it is in high school. It's one group of people that cause the most amount of damage.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the truth? I mean, honestly, not to get political, but I mean, like the most vocal the most vocal people in, say, well, because this is being recorded the night of the election, some of the most vocal people are the minority, and they're just the loudest, but they want to lord it over everybody else, you know. um
Mhm.
yeah, it just seems to go that way. And then what happens, I think, is that they drown out the voice of those that are a little bit more reasonable and moderate, and so you wind up going to extremes because the extreme views are, and that could be left or right, let's face it, the extreme views are the ones that seem to be expressed the loudest. And like you said, like, just like high school, the mean girls are always the ones that are the loudest, and they're the ones that are um, lording it over others and telling them like what you should be wearing and what kind of makeup you should have on. When I was in school in junior high school, I remember when it came to Levi's jeans, if your jeans had the orange tab on the back pocket as opposed to the red tab or the black tab, well, then you were just a loser. I don't know if it's still that way or not, but it was just a fucking tab. But oh, that tab was all the thing, and yeah, just ridiculous. So,
Well, when I was in school, the cool thing was the Abercrombie jeans.
oh, okay, yep,
But
things have changed.
I,
Levi's, God, it's so 90s.
um, yeah. So I mean, but it's very interesting. I have found out through a reliable source, like for example, the Catholic Church um, there are actually a few gay couples that go to the Catholic Church in the town where I live. And they're allowed to go for communion, all that kind of stuff, and the priest doesn't care. So I'm like, if the priest doesn't care, then why should this group of people or whatever, right? Like,
Well, even just recently, the Pope came out and said that civil unions, so not gay marriages, not same sex marriages, but civil unions between same sex couples are fine.
mm-hmm,
And he even said that he says that like uh, even people who are gay or bisexual or lesbian and so on, they're all God's children,
mm-hmm,
and they all have a right to a family. Um, that is a lot more progressive than any Jehovah's Witness expressed belief whatsoever. I can tell you that. Like, um Jehovah's Witnesses, same-sex marriages, no, that's an abomination in God's sight, in their opinion. And that's right at the institutional level. That's not even, down at like a select group of followers, whatever. That's in their publications. That's in their literature. That's official doctrine.
And that is the opinion that was being expressed to me through these certain people.
Hmm.
And all the times that I had gone to mass, and I went to mass every single week, gay people were never mentioned once. Not
Hmm.
once. It was never mentioned in mass ever.
Hmm.
So, you know, but that group of people that I was with and certain family members, whatever, that is not, something that is good, right? And I actually had a debate with somebody that I used to be really in close contact with, and somebody that I was, I would do whatever just to make them happy. And that topic came up and we kind of debated about it. And I was like, well, you don't really pick who you like. And she's like, well, it's okay to be attracted to somebody. That's not your fault. It's what you do with it that counts. And I'm like, that literally makes like that is the weakest argument ever, because then you're saying, okay, well, if I'm a girl and I like a guy, I'm allowed to act on that. But if I was a
Hmm.
girl liking a girl, that's still okay, but I'm not allowed to act on that. Like, that's such a double standard.
Yep.
And what I have especially learned is that there are people or what have you that I wish I could make myself love more, but I can't.
Hmm.
And people, you know, there's examples of people or whatever that I wish that I could love more, and there's examples of opposite where I wish I could love less. But I
Hmm.
can't do either of those things. So it doesn't make sense that you could say, okay, well, like like you expect somebody that's gay or whatever to to change who they're attracted to and stuff. But like, it doesn't work that way. Like, you know, it just doesn't. You love people however you love people, and you can try to love them more or less or whatever, but in my experience, it doesn't usually work that way.
Yeah.
um so I think that it's so unfortunate, because I think when people think about, and I don't think necessarily just with Catholic Church, with lots of religious people, they assume that what they want to talk about is against gay marriage, against abortion, against whatever, right?
Hmm.
And those were never really topics that were brought up in church, but it just was with the people with church. And to me, like, I don't know, if I were to express my religious like beliefs in one sentence or less, I really would go back to, what did Jesus say were the two most important things, is to love God and to love each other, right?
Yep.
And to me, like, going and standing outside these abortion clinics or whatever with signs and all this, or making petitions against gay marriage or whatever, I don't think that's what he would want us to do, because that's not loving each other, that's just spreading hate.
Yeah.
And I haven't really come across a lot of that, but it was enough or whatever, right? With, once again, with like the select group of people or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, like I would never say anything to anybody. Like, if, for example, I had a kid and they were gay or they were gonna get an abortion or whatever, I wouldn't be like, you suck or whatever, right? And I remember actually this story that my one friend, who also is a nun, but she's a lot different. She lived in I met her in Toronto, and she told this story once, because she gives talks all over. Um, and she told this story of this. It was a Catholic family, and their daughter was a lesbian, and she had a girlfriend or whatever, right? And they ended up breaking up, but the family still kept in contact with the girlfriend, because by then they became attached to her, and she was like one of the family or whatever, right? So I was like, if you can hear this at like a kid conference, whatever, Catholic conference, why can't all Catholic people think that way, right?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that some don't. And like I said, if I would have had a lot more influence on people like that in my spiritual life, then things might have turned out differently. I don't know, but
Can I ask you something? Like, do you feel like this small group of people that really felt like they were, oh, let's just say that they were really drinking the spiritual juice, the uber spiritual juice. Do you feel like they kind of sought you out as like one of their kind of like a project for them to have to work on, or do you feel like it kind of just happened?
well, I sought them out first, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And then once, honestly, for the majority of them, I don't think the majority of them even cared that I was there. I was
Hmm.
just kind of like there.
Mm-hmm.
But for one or two of them, I think it was more like, okay, like I don't think anybody ever intended to hurt me in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, for the majority of them, I don't think they cared either way. And I know they didn't, because once I stopped going, no one, it's like I disappeared off the face of the earth or whatever. No one bothered to contact me again. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously I know a lot of them didn't really care that much. But yeah, I don't know if it was like like we need to like recruit her or whatever. I do think that they were meaning to help. That
Yeah.
was their intention. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that they did think that they were doing what was best for me and in order to help me the most,
Mm-hmm.
but that was just not the case.
Okay, that's fair. So like, there's no maliciousness there. It's not like
No,
they're trying to be lording it over you, but that's just in the end, that's
no,
kind of like the general effect that came across with how they executed, as it were.
yeah, no, not at all. I don't think there was ever any negative intentions or anything. I would like I I know that they were doing what they thought was going to be what was best for me.
Mm-hmm.
It just turned out to not be what was best for me.
So now let me ask you this. Suppose just for a moment that like it wasn't this small group of people, but rather it was like at an institutional level that they were
Mhm,
saying, like, this is how God wants you to be. God wants you to be meek. If you're being sassy, well, you're just getting too uppity, or the spirit of independence and all the rest of this. If the priest had been preaching that from the pulpit week
mhm,
after week and so on, and if the institution had been preaching that to you to
mhm.
suppress the wonderful person that I've known you to be, do you think that you would feel differently about the Catholic Church? Do you think that there would be potentially a bit of resentment when you realize it, like, I was suppressing myself and now I'm having to rediscover myself thanks to what was taught?
Yeah, I think it would be different.
Yeah.
Because then that's kind of almost like what it was like at the Mormon church, right?
Okay. Yep.
But with the
So
Catholic Church, no, I don't feel like I ever got that from a institutional level.
would you have any kind of advice or thoughts for people that because like from any ex Jehovah's Witness, they go through that process of perhaps discovering who they really are,
Hmm.
or if maybe they weren't born in, but joined and then left,
Hmm.
like you said, like rediscovering who they are. There's some people that find it incredibly difficult. Some find it traumatizing in their own way. Did you find it really quite difficult to realize that you needed to rediscover yourself?
A little bit, yeah, because like when you're so used to hearing for so long about how you need to be meek and this and that and everything, and you know that that's not who you are, then you think, well, obviously there's something wrong with me.
Hmm.
But then, and it was actually my mother, who is not like super religious by any means who told me that she said, you can fool everybody in the world, but you can't fool God, right? So then that really like made sense to me because I was like, well, I mean, I've been this way forever. Obviously, I was made this way. So, you know, um, but it is hard. And honestly, I think the majority of people spend their whole life trying to figure out who they are, right? Like I think
Mhm.
that's literally what life is. But in terms of what I would give advice to people, it would be is just to like listen to listen to like yourself and how you feel, right? And like you should never let anybody tell make you feel less than what you are, right? Whether that's like a religious setting or somebody at work or family or friends or whatever, like you know you should never let somebody talk down to you. um
Be the
but
scariest thing in the forest.
yeah, exactly. So, but the other thing I would also say to people is that like you don't have to figure it out by tomorrow. Like if you're feeling like, oh my God, like I've been working on like you say, okay, well, I'm doing this self rediscovery thing or whatever, but it's been like so long or whatever. And it's like, so what? Like this is you, this is your life. You're not going to figure it out in 2 days. Like it's
Mhm.
okay to give yourself time. You don't need a set timeline or whatever of when you're going to have things figured out, when you're going to have this step done. Of course you should set goals for yourself, but like give yourself time because things like this, especially if you've been deeply affected by either an institution or a group of people or whatever it is, if you've been deeply affected, you're not going to get over it tomorrow. That's like expecting somebody who's in a relationship with somebody and they break up to be over it in 2 days. Like that's just not going to happen. you
Wait,
know
you mean that doesn't happen? What? I don't know. What?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I don't think so. But the more time and energy and yourself you put into something, when it's over or when it changes, it's going to take more time and all that kind of stuff. And that's okay. Like you don't have to have things figured out in 2 days, and
There's a song that actually kind of comes to mind. Canadian artist Tom Cochrane, very popular song called "Life Is a Highway."
uh-huh.
Now, just thinking about that song for a moment, I mean, think about the analogy, like life is a highway. Okay, so like, yeah, there's twists and turns, and especially if you're driving through the mountains, there are some times where you like if you're trying to get from point A to point B and you're driving through the mountains, through the Rocky Mountains, it is not a straight line because you're going like around mountains. So like, you can like go this way only to kind of like curve around and come back just to keep on going on your path. Well, that doesn't mean that that whole curve was wasted. There was a lot of things you kind of got to see along the way, great vistas and views and everything else. And there's even more ahead. Some of the turns are sharper, some of the corners are a little bit hairier and scarier than others, and sometimes there's potholes. you know but but that doesn't mean that, like, well, you're supposed to just get from point A to point B right away. Like you said, like, you don't have to figure it all out tomorrow, because I honestly believe, and I've said this before, viewers, on this channel, but like, you never stop growing. The only time when you stop growing as a person and evolving as a person is when you die, or unless you want to give up and not bother to continue to grow as a human being. I mean, I don't honestly feel anymore that there's the old excuse, like, for somebody who's like much older, if they want to be bigoted or racist or whatever else, to be spewing all of that stuff. Oh, well, they're old, that's just the way they are. It's like, no, that's the way they've chosen to be. That's the way they've chosen to remain.
Yeah.
you know um they pulled the car over to the side of the road and just decided, I'm just going to wait here to die, kind of thing. So, I mean, yeah, like, so many people will be like, well, I've got to discover who I am. I've got to discover who I am. I think honestly that is forever changing.
Hmm.
I don't think that we are static as human beings at all. And like this journey that you took, worthwhile, I'd say.
I think so. And honestly, the the re self rediscovery or whatever process was so like this whole experience really, and then the rediscovery, it really was so like life changing that that's why I got my newest tattoo that I have.
And where did you get your tattoo again?
It's it's on my wrist.
That's right. Yeah.
Is it gonna be backwards? Probably, right?
No, no, it shows up perfectly.
Okay. So this is this name of a song.
Yep.
Um so I don't know if everybody's gonna know the song or not. It's by Queen, and it's basically just about a woman. The song is um you can read into it in lots of different ways.
Hmm.
Um if you read the lyrics, you can take from it that it's about like a high class call girl. You can take that from the lyrics. But even Freddie Mercury himself, who's the one who wrote the song, said that he didn't want any of his songs to be about just one specific thing, for it to be about whatever you want it to be about.
Queen's music was written for like it was written for the fans to bring to it whatever they wanted to.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Which I think is really cool because some artists you hear about their music and they're like, this song is about this person and this is what happened, which is fine. But I liked how he gave that like, I didn't write this about anyone thing. You decide what you want, right? So for me, the song is just really about a woman that like she knows who she is and she's confident in that, and she's not scared to be that, right? She just is like, well, she's a killer queen, right?
Yep.
Um, and so that's why I got this tattoo. So then if I ever have moments of that where I'm like, oh, like, whatever, I can look and be like, no, like, that is you. Because I couldn't, like, I've always related to music throughout my whole life. It's always been a huge part of my life, and I've always like related to songs, but not every single lyric in that song, but like 95% of the lyrics in the song, I was like, that's like me, and that's like me, and that's like me. And I was like, what? Like, what's happening? Like, there's a song that's that is so like I could relate to specifically to like almost every single lyric. And I was like, this is like A, who I want to be, and like kind of like three things: A, what I want to be; two, what I'm trying to be; and C, what I already kind of am.
Hmm.
So that's why I got this tattoo, because and really like the aspects, whatever, the Killer Queen is pretty much the exact opposite of everything that I was being, you know, told was how God wants to be, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think that is true. So I think, I mean, obviously, I feel like there are certain things that you shouldn't do, like go around killing people and being horrible.
What?
You shouldn't go around being horrible and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being sassy and being confident and knowing who you are and being okay with that, and being like the scariest one in the forest, right?
Hmm.
Because when you're the scariest one in the forest, it doesn't mean that you are gonna attack the little squirrel that's not gonna hurt you. It just means that if
Hmm.
someone, you know, comes to attack you, you're strong enough to handle it, right?
Yeah.
So that song really carried me through a lot the past, in those few months of the rediscovery. Because then I'd be like, okay, like I'm starting to feel like myself again, but then I'd go back a few steps, but then I'd listen to that and it would pull me forward again. So it was really, really, really helpful.
Hmm.
And I would say it was one of the biggest parts of getting me through all of that. So that's why I got the tattoo, and in a very like obvious spot so that I can look
Yep.
at it and I see it all the time, and it reminds me of like, okay, like, you know who you are, as much as we do change and things change and this and that throughout your life, that's true, but really, like, there's certain things like my independence and my sass and whatever have been with me like forever.
Mm-hmm.
So just don't lose something that you've always been, right? Like, you tried that once and it sucks, really. So don't do that again. Like, don't don't forget that, you know, that's who you are and no one can take that away from you.
And get a tattoo on a prominent place. I mean, let's see if I can. I can't seem to get mine in view. Here, let's see if I can do this. There we
It's
go.
so awkward. I know. I'm always like, can you see my tattoo?
Yeah. It's easy enough for me to look down at mine, but to get it on camera, like this is that idea about, like, having a um like something that you believe in and what you aspire to. I mean, this is a Vulcan Idic from Star Trek, and IDIC stands for infinite diversity and combinations. And for me, like, diversity, a lot of people say, like, that's one of those buzz phrases for the radical left. But I mean, diversity in thought and belief and whatnot is actually a beautiful thing,
Hmm.
and be like open and willing to accept that. And that's something that I've always believed in. And it was Star Trek that taught me that, not Jehovah's Witnesses, obviously. And so that's why I wear that tattoo, like, on in a place where I can look down and be reminded, like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is a core belief. This is something
Yeah.
that's very important to me. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to get a tattoo, even though I just said get one, but like, always keep in front of you, like, the things that are important to you, and
Hmm.
remind yourself of, like, yeah, this is what's important to me. This is what I believe in. This is what I want. And, don't allow other people who's other people to mold you and change you into something that they feel you ought to be, because then you're not being true to yourself. I mean, Fiona, how did it feel for you? I mean, I know how it felt because you and I talked, but, like, for others, how did it feel when, like, for you as a person, when you were trying to be what these people were saying you ought to be? What did it feel like inside?
Well, I mean, like I said before, I was pretty good at fooling myself. So it wasn't like a complete total battle all the time. But there would just be like certain little things. Like every once in a while, it'd be like for example, I am kind of a loser a little bit, and I still watch Scooby Doo sometimes. But
There's
like,
nothing wrong with watching Scooby Doo.
but like for example, that movie I was telling you about, Scooby, the witches goes with these hex girls. I just would not watch it because it just was too hard, right? Or like at Halloween or whatever, right? Things like that were, you know. So it just would be like little things where I'd be like, oh, well, I really, really like that. But then it's like, okay, well, no, that was old you, not the new you.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of comparing the old me versus the new me, I should have been comparing the real me versus the fake me.
Yeah,
Because like,
because,
yeah.
well, there was a bit of oh, what's the word I want to use? There was a little bit of fallout for you in some ways, like when you kind of realize, like, I'm not being myself. I'm not being true to me.
Hmm.
There was a lot of sadness that you felt, like, from that, wasn't there?
A little bit, yeah, because that you're thinking, okay, well, fair enough, this is the way I am, but then you think, okay, well, then obviously something is wrong with me or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
And did you find that you had, like, feelings of inadequacy, or, like, how can I possibly be acceptable to God or to others or anybody? Like, did you have those kinds of feelings, or?
a little bit, yeah. I don't know if it would necessarily be to others, but more to like God, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel now?
Well, you know what? I think what it really honestly comes down to is how you feel on the inside and how you know, treat other people. And I think everybody's situation is different, right?
Hmm.
Like if you're gonna like go into that extreme area of talking like, okay, like what's gonna happen when you get judged at the end or whatever. I think honestly, I do feel like everybody's situation gets put into context too. Like,
Yeah.
for example, I feel like, okay, like let's say this is like purely hypothetical, but let's say you die and you're going to like get judged or whatever, right? Like,
Hmm.
let's say there was somebody who went to some kind of religious school, whether it be Catholic, Jehovah, like whatever, and they were abused by a religious person there, right? They'll probably never want to step foot in any kind of religious institution again. But
Yep.
that's not their fault, right?
Hmm.
No, that's not their fault. Something was done to them by somebody else and it's not their fault. So I think everybody's situation also is different too. Like, it's all fine and good to say, okay, well, like, because obviously if you have one person that was born, raised Catholic in a Catholic family, they find a Catholic husband, blah blah blah, whatever, it's going to be a completely different situation of somebody that, and they still might be Catholic themselves too, but they're just doing it literally by themselves. Their family's not Catholic, their husband or whatever isn't. Those are, even though both people are Catholic or whatever religion it is, right?
Hmm.
They're in completely different situations because one person is doing it with all this, like, supported community, and one person is not. So I think those are the two biggest things to remember is that number one, it comes down to, and it comes down to how much you care for people and how much, you know, whatever, right? How much you're willing to do for people. And not that you have to like be out every weekend in soup kitchens or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be something like that. It could even just be if somebody's dropping all their stuff at work, go and help them pick something up. Or, or somebody looks like they're sad, just be like, oh, hey, how's it going? Or whatever, right? Like, it doesn't have to be these huge acts of charity or whatever. Just as in these day-to-day things, right? And I think the other thing also to remember too is that everybody's situation is different, right? Whether that be like religiously or otherwise, right? Everybody's situation is different, and you can't say, okay, well, this is the path that we all need to specifically follow, because not everyone's path is the same, right?
Yeah. We're all on different highways. We're not all on the same highway. I mean, I know that I know that there's a scripture in the Bible where Jesus says that the road to life is narrow, narrow and cramped, and so on. Well, no, I'm gonna say that we're all on our own roads, as it were, and going off in different directions. And in the end, I really do feel that there are times where you travel with people, other times where you might intersect. People come and go, but I mean, people come and go, but I mean, that doesn't mean that we all have to be going to the exact same place.
Well, exactly. And and you
Yeah.
could even take what he said in that way, like the road to life is narrow. Maybe that just means because you're on it by yourself, because yours is different from everyone else's, right?
Yep. Exactly.
you know so yeah, I think those are the biggest things to remember. Like, I just, I think it's hard when you see somebody and they're in one situation and they look at somebody in another situation, they're like, well, if they just did this then they'd feel so much better. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know that, right? Like, and one thing that I've always strived for my whole life, whether I was um religious or not, is not to judge people, because you don't know what's going on, right? Like, for example, even little things like your Star Trek tattoo. I think that's cool. Like, why not? Right?
Yeah.
I think it's cool how you, like, I saw on Facebook the other day that you had framed pictures of Star Trek stuff in your office. I
Yep.
believe that's cool. Like, why not? Right? I think that's really cool. So if I could just sum it up, that's what I would say is like, and I think if I look back on it, really that group of people that I was with was probably more judgmental than anybody else, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
just think yeah, just take into context. And you can even take that outside of a religious context too. You can take that into your work or your friendships or relationships or whatever. Is that like you can't judge a person because you don't know their situation, because oftentimes a situation is not like not forming a person but heavily influencing that person, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to remember that you know, don't look, you should never look down on anybody, but especially just, you know, treat somebody with the openness that you would want, because who knows, that might be what that person needs, right? You know.
Hmm. That almost sounds like a certain golden rule from somewhere. Can't put my finger on it. But this has been a fantastic discussion. I'm really glad that you got to, like, rediscover yourself. And of course, it's always fantastic to talk to you and have you on the channel. And of course, this will not be the last time you're on it. So,
Oh, and
but
speaking, my shirt also says that. Can you see?
she's a killer queen. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Love it. Love it. But thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much
much
for
for
having me
this.
on the channel. It's so much fun, and it really is. It is nice to talk about it,
Hmm.
and I'm always willing to talk to people about it too.
So, where should people look for you if they want to ask questions or talk?
Probably Instagram. Um, I can give you a link to my Instagram. It's not the same username as I had last time,
Hmm.
so that might be different. It's three underscores and then Cleopatra and then another three underscores. So,
Okay.
but my Instagram is open publicly, and you know, isn't that what people say? You can go into your DMs or slide into your DMs. I don't know. That might be like a sexual thing. I don't even know. Um, but no, I always, that's one of my favorite things, honestly, is just to talk about people and about their feelings and about their experiences and what they're going through and all that kind of stuff, because I find that people, like just people, are the most like fascinating thing ever, you know?
Yep.
So, and I, you know, if I could be anything for somebody, I wish I had somebody like how I was feeling, how I feel now during that period of time in my life, so that there wasn't this like, you don't have to have this battle of like, well, am I wrong or am I bad or you know whatever, when you're just trying to be true to yourself. So
Hmm.
yeah,
That's excellent.
I'm always open to talk to anybody.
As long as you're being respectful and not being a perv, guys, come on. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, like don't forget this says killer. So
Exactly. Yeah. But thank you so much, Fiona. It was an absolute pleasure, and I love you dearly. I hope you always remember that.
oh, of course. You know how much I care for you too, right? And I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to getting to see you in person.
Someday, someday soon. Yep, it'll happen. It'll happen. Until then, make sure everybody take care of yourselves. Do whatever self care you need to. Um, I guess the Christmas season is coming up soon, so you know there's that to look forward to. And hey, hopefully 2021 is a much better year, and Halloween 2021. Hey, if the planets align just right, maybe we can celebrate it together in person. Huh? Maybe.
Exactly, right? And yeah,
Exactly.
that would be that's my parting words too, is to find things to look forward to and find things that make you happy, you know, whether that's putting up a picture of Star Trek on your wall or buying a Freddie Mercury sweatshirt or whatever, or you know, whatever, right? Just find whatever makes you feel better and feel happy and just go with it. And if somebody laughs at you, then they're obviously the loser because they don't know how cool it is.
Exactly. They're the ones that have a problem, not you. On that note, thanks again. Bye for now, everybody. We'll be talking to you again soon. And if you haven't
Bye.
already, like, comment, subscribe, you know, the drill, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, share this with others if you found it useful.
All right, bye.